this podcast will fail. Mostly because nobody's going to listen to it. And you might prove me wrong. Who knows? So this is episode 2. And once again, I'm trying to change things up. Just seems to be a common theme for me. Trying to find a different way or a different place or a different method for recording content. Yesterday I did the episode in the front seat of my car on my lunch hour, and it's pretty obvious that it came out sounding like I was speaking into a tin can. Nice and echoey and hollow, metal, twingy sort of audio. I should have known better. And I'm not particularly good at that kind of audio editing. I don't know how to fix that sort of reverb, hollow, environmental noise. I try to mess with it a little bit in Audacity, and I was happy with how the actual content of the episode came out, so I kept it. I posted it. I had a couple of interesting revelations talking to myself. So today I am out for a walk on my morning break. There's a generator off to the side, so you're probably going to hear that. There's crickets off to that side. You're probably going to hear that. And wind noise. And probably going to hear some of that. So once again, experimenting to see what this sounds like. I work, the day job is like an office manager. I kind of run a dispatch center for a cable company. And whenever it's slow enough and the world is quiet enough, I can maybe take a break occasionally and go for a walk in the big old office park I work in. So here we go. Is this the wind noise now? I don't know how this is going to... if this thing is going to avoid that wind noise or not while I'm talking. But I like to take a walk around this now, currently 99% empty office park. A whole bunch of buildings with empty parking lots because we live in a pandemic world right now. Nobody's actually at work except for me and my staff. But everyone else is pretty much working from home. You might see 10 or 20 cars total in this big old complex. So what am I talking about today? Yesterday I dug back to the beginnings of my career. That's a weird word. As a creator, I think a career indicates that you've made a living. I haven't made a living. My ventures into creative endeavors all the way back to my childhood and teenage life. Identified that moment where I think I realized that I wanted to be famous, and I don't know why, but I do, and my first couple forays into that sort of endeavor. So I guess I'll pick up the thread from there. I guess the next time I became aware of any particular desire to do anything was, I was going to say my first internet radio excursion, but that's not it, actually. No, that's not it at all. Now that I think about it, it was writing. That's right, it was writing. I wrote a book. And it sucked. Because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm not trained as a writer. I never... So here's the thing. I never went to college. Alright? Never took a single English lit class beyond what they made you do to graduate high school. So I have no, or at least had no, concept of how to structure a story and what writing and creative writing was really, how that worked. But I had an idea, and I chewed away at it, man. I remember this is, I guess this is 1999 to 2000. And I bought this crappy Brother word processor, which was basically a keyboard with a rudimentary screen. That's like a $200 machine or something back in the 90s. And I would sit there on the bus every day on the way to work and type and write and try to flesh out this story that I was working on and try to understand these characters and try to make some kind of a compelling reason why someone would be interested in these characters and want to read this book. And I worked on it for most of a year, probably, chipping away at it. And I finished it, and I wasn't sure about it, but I figured, what the hell? This is where you go ahead and submit it to publishers and agents and see if anybody's interested, and went through a whole big process of like, oh, you got to print out several copies, paper copies, and you got to mail one to yourself, priority mail with delivery confirmation, so that you have a postmark that proves that you own this content. And then, of course, you fire it off. Ever worried that some, unscrupulous publisher or somebody is going to like steal your story and publish it and take credit for your work? Well, clearly that was not something I needed to worry about, because I got a healthy handful of thanks but no thanks. And that's probably all of, 3 or 4 of them, of the 10 or 20, that I submitted to. And it didn't go anywhere. And I just kind of, that was age 25 or so. And, spent a year, 1 to 2 years, trying to cobble something together out of that, thinking, all right, once again, this is now the mantra of my creative life. I can do that. Love Stephen King, read pretty much everything he ever published, and thought, yeah, I can do that. So I tried. And while I technically did do that, I didn't do it particularly well. And nobody cared or showed that there was anything worth anything being interested in that work. So I see interesting and creative people, and I see things that people are creating, and I say to myself, man, I want to do that. And I try it, and I put everything I've got into it, and I move through it with this mindset that it's gonna take me on down the road like that big old semi-tractor trailer you just heard drive by me on the highway that's apparently on the other side of this berm that I'm walking past right now. Should move away from this highway so that the rest of this podcast that nobody's listening to ends up more listenable somehow. The wind noise in this corridor is bad enough as it is. But that was really, as an adult, the first time that I attempted to create something that I thought would be a commercial success somehow and elevate me and take me off on a new journey. And it went nowhere, predictably. Then I guess I can just kind of put it aside and say, all right, fine. The writing's not going to work out. I got to pay bills. I got to make money. I got a young family. I got 2 little kids at the time. This is, again, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, moving on. Building my life as a corporate, pin in the machine. I found a direction professionally in office management, I guess. supervising, managing everything from back office, bank operations, financial services for a number of years. Just kind of made my stamp that way as the professional supervisor. Paid the bills, built a resume, got a reputation, learned all of the actual marketable skills that I have in life, which really come down to things like communication, being able to talk to people, being able to lead people through their careers and be able to take a process and make it work for the company and for the company's clients. And it was like a big wind tunnel for like 10 years, just like the huge wind tunnel that I just went through walking in between two buildings to try and get away from the highway. I don't know that I learned anything in that particular journey. I didn't have a sense yet that I didn't do the groundwork. All right? I didn't go to college. Okay, fine. There's lots of circumstances as to why I didn't go to college. The biggest one, of course, is the fact that I was an effing moron in high school, and I was not academically inclined, and I somehow, against all logic and reason, earned a high school diploma during a very tumultuous time in my life. So college wasn't in the mix, in the plans, in the cards. So I never learned to write, and I could have probably invested the time and effort into taking a creative writing course somehow, somewhere. The internet wasn't what it is, right? In the early 2000s, it wasn't a world like it is today, where the sum total of human knowledge and experience is available literally on demand at our fingertips. Pony up a couple $100 to, $1,000 to go take a creative writing course at a community college or something, and that wasn't going to work. I can't invest that kind of time when I'm working 40 plus hours a week and trying to have a family life at home with my young kids and just trying to get through a week and survive. And I think that was kind of maybe the first inclination that I get stuck in this kind of fake it till you make it mentality. I think that has defined so much of what I've done and what I've attempted to do in the last however many years. This season, the first couple episodes, focus on 15 years of failure, but in actuality, it's longer than that. and recording this episode has brought that realization to me. It's been much longer than 15 years. It goes all the way back to the 2000s, so I guess it's technically 20 years. But I still think I don't really count that attempt at writing that book as part of the big picture. I don't know that it truly does count. Whee! There's a pretty blue Dodge Challenger as I cross the street. What I guess I realize is that first attempt at writing back in the 2000s should have been a warning sign or a wake-up call to me that if you're going to do something, you gotta put the work in. And I suppose that is the lesson that I've taught myself in the last 16 minutes and 30 seconds of talking here. walking in the sunshine, listening to the wind blow in my ears, and probably listening to the wind blow in this microphone. I guess you got to learn to do the work, is what it really boils down to. And when it came to that first attempt at writing, I didn't do the work. I thought I was sitting there trying to squeeze the last little bit of toothpaste out of an empty tube and call it a work of creative fiction. Interestingly, and I'll make one last note about this book. I had it in a plain white 3-hole punch binder, sitting in a storage box in the basement for the last 20 years. And recently, 2 of my older sons went off to college. They actually went off together. But my recent high school graduate, 18-year-old, as he was going through gathering what he was going to take off to college with him, stumbled upon this book. Found the binder and read it. And he didn't tell me until just a few days before they left that he had read it. And I cringed and I thought, well, there was a waste of your time. And he actually said to me, he goes, well, he goes, it wasn't like great. He goes, there was a lot of missing pieces and gaps, and he's like, it wasn't awful. And I don't know if that was just him being kind to his dear old dad. Probably was just him being kind, because that's kind of how I raised him. But the thing he did say was that he felt the characters, that he saw them and he heard them, and that he could picture them, and that what he found surprising in the reading of this horrible story was that the characters stood out from each other. And he told me that so many things he reads and he has read, you almost can't distinguish the voices of the various main and supporting characters. But he said in your story, they really came to life. He's like, each individual character, he said, had a personality of their own that shined and stood out. And he said, I thought that was really great. So it's interesting that big old clutch of birds over there. It's interesting that 20 years later, there was some sort of a thing to be learned. Not just the sense that I didn't do the work and I didn't set myself up for success, but that 20 years later, somebody with a fresh set of eyes might look at it and say, hey, you know what? It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen or read either. And I think that's pretty cool. So I think that's where we're going to stop here and move on to the next piece of my creative life. Tomorrow I'll pick up on when I got back into quote unquote radio. If anybody was actually listening to this, which I don't think you were, I certainly don't expect that you would have made it to the end of this 20 minutes. But if you did, you have my thanks. And I hope you have a great day. I will talk to you again tomorrow.